Right, welcome to week 7. This week we are looking at radical Islamism. Normally we want to argue that there's a clear demarcation point between ideology and religion. Typically we think of religion as being primarily concerned with the state of people's souls, and secondarily with providing a justification for political action. However, history suggests the line between religion and politics is less sharp than we might otherwise think, and this chapter suggests that certainly religion can be twisted to political purposes. The authors are not suggesting that Islam as a whole has been politicized, but rather that a fraction of Muslim adherents in Dar al-Islam, which literally translated is the House of Islam, which refers to that portion of the world dominated by by Muslims, has been somehow radicalized. So, therefore, the authors would argue that these radicalized interpretations of Islam, both among Sunni and Shiite Muslims, constitute a kind of ideology and are therefore worthy of study for this course. There are a couple of important origin points for Islamic radicalization. First, Islam has always been a political religion. Muslims generally don't acknowledge a sharp division between church and state. In part, that's because Christianity, unlike us, they historically developed along a path where, religion and politics were pretty much conjoined. Christianity dealt with things like the 100 Years' War and the 30 Years' War and doctrinal conflicts where thousands of people died in the service of religion and politics. No such historical events occurred in the Islamic world unless they're beginning to occur now. The reality is that most Muslims appear to want their government to follow Sharia law, albeit maybe in a more or less enlightened way. Second, the history of the Crusades and the subsequent colonization of the Muslim world by European powers created deep reservoirs of resentment among Muslims towards non-Muslims intruding into the politics of their region. 3/5 of the world's proven oil reserves are located in the Middle East, and that pretty much guarantees that the industrialized world is intensely interested in political affairs in the Middle East, and economic and military powers have powerful incentives to intervene when Middle Eastern politics threaten the flow of oil. Third, the long-standing conflicts between Israel and the Palestinian people has proven to be a deeply destabilizing factor in the Middle East. Israel's military preeminence in the region, combined with its often brutal treatment of Palestinians, is a constant source of outrage among both Sunnis and Shiites. Strong U.S. Economic and military support for the nation of Israel, combined with the perception among Muslims that the American government has effectively become Israel's advocate rather than playing the role of honest broker within the region, has also contributed to a deep vein of extremism among Muslims. I don't think it's accidental that Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, Islamic nations in what is known as the Levant region of the Middle East, are experiencing civil wars or significant civil unrest. Their proximity to Israel has drawn them into broader religious conflicts among Sunni and Shiites in the Middle East. Fourth, there's a proximate kind of sparking event that contributed significantly to the rise of radical Islamism, and that's the Iranian Revolution of 1979. The Iranian Revolution had a number of broad and significant consequences. The loss of Iran as a U.S. strategic ally in the region, which created a powerful incentive to do something that I'll talk about in a second. The establishment of a Shiite majority theocratic regime, and Iran's subsequent sponsoring of Shiite militant movements in the Middle East, in places like Syria and Lebanon. And most of those groups are profoundly anti-Israeli in orientation. Groups like Hezbollah have received extensive financial support and military training from Iran, and again are a destabilizing force in Lebanon, and have fought to keep the Assad regime in power. So finally, the U.S. invasion and occupation of Iraq further destabilized the region, And that kind of, again, provoked what became known as the Arab Spring, which swept through the Arab countries of Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Yemen, and Syria in 2011, and which spawned brutal civil wars in Yemen and Syria, which have cost hundreds of thousands of lives. So the challenge that radical Islamism presents is the broader problem that all radicalism presents. As closed, unchangeable minds, radicals aren't interested in being reasoned with, and they simply aren't persuadable. So what can you do to counter the threat that radical Islam presents to the world? What can we do to help Muslims improve their political and social and economic, realities? Hopefully we have an idea of what we'll be doing this week. We have 3 graded assignments, the forum and the quiz as always, and then you have your last ideological analysis exercise, which is based around a 2015 article from The Atlantic by Graham Wood called What ISIS Really Wants. It's a very good article. I know it's a little dated, but it really gives you some kind of drill down insight into what causes people to become radicalized. So let's get our work done and have a great week.